for all of us as Christians, like we want to wake up each day with a focus on eternity. But as moms, and especially homeschool moms, you can lose that focus pretty quick because you're getting overwhelmed. To be able to just sit with each other, enjoy each other, and also deal with issues because that's just part of healthy relationships. God is sovereign. He knows what we're going to go through each day, and He's given us what we need to be patient and to make it through those things, and to really look at those different circumstances as opportunities to be an example to your kids of godliness and how you respond.
Hello, welcome to Chia's California Homeschool Podcast. I'm Angela Lasch, and today we're talking about something that probably hits home for a lot of you. How to keep the heart of your homeschool front and center, especially when life gets crazy and schedules threaten to take over. Our guest today is Rachel Zwayne, and she's been such an encouragement to Chia and to homeschool families everywhere. Rachel homeschooled 5 kids while her husband Easy and her dad Ray Comfort were doing full-time ministry with Living Waters, so she knows a thing or two about juggling it all. Now she's a grandma and runs the Joyful Mothers Ministry, and she is still all about helping moms navigate the real, messy, beautiful work of raising and discipling their children. If you've ever felt that tension between wanting everything neat and perfect on paper and just wanting to know your kids, this conversation is for you. Rachel gets it. She's been there, and she's got some really encouraging things to say about what it looks like to put hearts before schedules. So let's jump in. Hello, Rachel. I'm so glad that you're able to join us today. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yes, me too. So let's go ahead and jump right in. You can just begin sharing all of your years of wisdom and homeschool experience with whoever happens to be listening. And
Okay.
I know over the years, you have really just been a friend to Chia by speaking at our conventions, coming to conventions, and really just encouraging the homeschool community at large. So tell us a little bit about your homeschool journey. What was it like raising and homeschooling your 5 kids?
Okay, well, I love talking about that because it's amazing what the Lord's done over the years. I am past homeschooling now. Actually, we finished this last year and wrapped up 25 years of homeschooling. And, it just kind of fell into my lap. Many, many years ago, we had a sweet family that started coming to our church, and they homeschooled their kids, and my husband and I had just had one baby. And of course, you're already thinking about what are we going to do education wise, and we for sure wanted to do private school, but we're wondering, okay, financially, is that even going to be possible? And then this idea of homeschooling came up, and I don't know how we must have been living under rocks or something, but we had not heard of homeschooling before in our circles. And so we were just so intrigued and had so many questions. And one thing led to another, and we decided just to go for it. And I was absolutely terrified. And I didn't really have other friends that were homeschooling at the time. I mean, just that family, but not close friends. And some of my friends, had younger kids, and so they're like, "Oh, yeah, you go for it, and we'll follow behind you." And I'm like, "No, don't follow me. I don't know what I'm doing." And so I was constantly trying to find mentors and someone just to hold my hand and asking lots of questions. But the Lord was so gracious. I think back over the years of just the times where I shed a lot of tears and was so worried about so many things that I needn't need to worry about. Um, but it's been a wonderful journey, and I just became more and more passionate year after year about homeschooling and the joys of it and the struggles too, wanting to just encourage others like, "Okay, you're gonna make it. It's gonna be okay." And just looking back now, I'm like, "Oh, I just have such a passion to encourage homeschool moms and just tell them like, hey, if you wanna do this and the Lord's calling you to do it, it is so possible, and there's so much help and hope in the Lord." And so I see how the Lord just filled in all those gaps of my weaknesses and just his grace and mercy. And so it's been a beautiful journey. And so it was very, very bittersweet wrapping it up. I remember even actually with our firstborn when so we have 5, 8, their ages now are 28 down to 18. And she was heading into her senior year. I think it was the summertime of between her junior and senior year, and I was going to go to the chia convention, and that's where I would buy a lot of my books and curriculum. And my husband was like, "Oh wow, like next year you're only going to be buying for four." And I just stopped in my tracks and I was like, "That is so sad." And he's like, "Hey, I was trying to say that as an encouragement. It's going to be easier." And, you just get so attached to your students, obviously
Mhm.
your children, like, and the dynamic that they play in your homeschool experience each day. And it just felt so sad to be releasing her and her moving on. But that was just a testament to what the Lord had done because in the beginning, you're kind of like, how am I going to do this? And you go through those times where you're like, "Oh, I just wanna run for the hills." But yeah, it's been wonderful, and I look back with just so much joy, just really of looking at God's grace all of the way.
Yeah, I remember, when I was done homeschooling my last one, and this summer, I went to the Chia convention before his senior year and
Mhm.
walking around the same thing thinking, "Wow, this is it." Like, I
Mhm.
I don't have any reason to come
Yeah.
back to the convention now.
Yes,
And it
yes.
was very
Mhm.
bittersweet, but, yeah, definitely
Yes.
thankful for that time.
Yeah.
Now during your homeschool journey, your family is Living Waters Ministry. Your dad, Ray Comfort, your husband, Easy, and I can't imagine just the struggles of ministry and homeschool. I mean, there's just so much to that. So, how did you navigate homeschooling while supporting your husband's calling and just the ministry?
It's so interesting because when I first started homeschooling, I just had this mindset of okay, I got to just do what I saw, when I was in school. We're just going to duplicate the school system, and you learn pretty quickly from the older homeschool moms, like, no, 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 we're not doing that. And so that was ultimately really freeing. Is just like, okay, it doesn't and shouldn't really look like as a classroom, a school classroom, because you have so many more freedoms. You don't have to jump through the hoops that they have to jump through. You don't have to manage a class of 20 or 30 kids. And so I started to learn that and to realize, wow, I have a lot of freedom here and I should milk it for all it's worth. And it really is such a blessing to be able to have that freedom, and because of that, it made the ministry aspect pretty easy because we just could accommodate that. So we would join up, especially when I didn't, I had 2, 3 kids, it was a little easier. Once we got to 5, I slowed down a little bit. I was like, okay, I don't think I can get out of the house as much. But I would take the school books to my dad's ministry and hang out over there and do schoolwork over there. My kids got to be a part of it and to see their grandparents because my parents and my 2 brothers actually work at Living Waters, so all the family's over there, and so it really was just a blessing. And with my husband's schedule, he traveled quite a bit, and so when he was home, then we would just make the most of that time, and I wasn't on a school schedule where I just had to be at the mercy of that, and so really it worked out great for us, and I don't see it as having been a struggle. I think the struggle really was me learning just to relax a little bit and not be like, "Oh, we have to get school done," and you'd be so worried. Of course, the goal was diligence and hard work and making sure that we were learning and all of that, but not feeling just the pressure of just, "Oh, well, we have to wrap up all these things on this day and it has to be done perfectly," but just having that freedom, and that was just such a blessing to our family and our family time.
And I think that's something that most people don't really realize about homeschooling because you're right. When you start, you think, okay, we have to do school Monday through Friday from 9 to 3 or whatever that is. But you can adjust to your family's schedule. And my husband was in a ministry. His job at the time wasn't a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 job. So
Mhm,
when
mhm.
he was able to be home, we hung out. We did
Yeah.
things together as a family, and then when
Mhm.
he wasn't gonna be home a couple days, then we knew, "Okay, this is when we're gonna buckle down 'cause dad's not here." But just having that freedom, um, yeah, my boys got to see their dad way more than they would have had they been in that traditional setting. So it really can strengthen the family if you can relax enough and, allow
That's so
yourself
true.
to
Yes,
school
so
around
true.
your family, yes,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
so let's switch gears a little bit and really focus more, I guess, on relationships. And we've kind of already kind of talked about this a little bit, but Just from your years of homeschooling, what does it look like to really have your your homeschool focus on your family and really just loving your family versus being completely, academically focused? What do you think is the difference in those 2 scenarios?
And it's important for people to understand when we talk about this aspect that we're not saying chuckle the academics and, sit around snuggling all day long or something. Um, but, it's just making sure it's balanced in the right way. And, I learned from experience, learned from my mistakes with this because I was very determined that wanted to do everything perfectly and I wanted to do it right. And I didn't want to ruin my children because, you have all these thoughts and feelings of like, oh, I'm going to ruin them. And then sometimes there's family members that are making you feel like you're going to ruin them, maybe extended family that is just very skeptical. And so you feel the pressure and you feel the pressure of like, this responsibility is totally on me, and that can lead to some stress, and that can lead to you getting into just a real too strong of an academic mode, like a lecturing type mode, or like we have to get this done, and just a it's just imbalance to where every time your kids see you, you have just that face, that intense face that's like, okay, hurry up, get to work. We've got to finish this before we get to soccer practice or violin practice. And, where there's no, of course, we want to teach our kids to be punctual and to be diligent, but there's just an intensity there because you're feeling the stress and the pressure of getting your academic work done and making sure your kids are educated well. And so I think it's really just having your finger on the pulse of, okay, what are my kids experiencing from me? Kind of taking a step back and reflecting on what do they see on my face every day? What is it that they experience from me every day? Do they have a sense that I deeply love them and that I really enjoy them and I really love just spending time with them? Because we're in our own heads, so we know how much we love our kids. We know that we're laying in bed at night thinking about them and being concerned about them and praying for them, but when we wake up in the morning and homeschool's on the agenda and we have some hoops to jump through and some to-do lists and goals that we have in mind, we can kind of get into drill sergeant mode. And then that's what they're experiencing. They're not in our head seeing all the fluffy stuff that we're feeling at the times when the stress is lower. And so all they feel is that mom's up every day, just getting all intense about school and implementing discipline, which is needed at times, but it's done in just a frustrated, like agitated way. And so I think it really is just navigating that well and really doing a lot of self-reflection. And I just had to do this so often because I would veer off course a lot. I really would have these goals in mind and knew the way that would be the best way to encourage learning in my kids and give them a love for learning and excitement and learn alongside them and get excited about things that we were learning, but then I would kinda slip into that mode. It could be, that was sparked by just this, it could just be the time of the month, or it could be just these emotions that I'm feeling, or someone's telling me what their kid's doing, and I'm thinking, "Oh, we haven't done that, and we're not doing that, and we're not on top of that, now I'm behind, and are we really doing okay?" And so we get these waves of emotions that come, and then that plays out in how we interact with our children. And so it's really just about balancing all of that. It's about, thinking, okay, yes, this is an area that I need to explore more because we aren't really stay on top of it. But what really helped me is just to kind of put a pin in that and say, okay, I'm going to work on that on the weekend, or I'm going to, you know, um, have hubby watch the kids and go out to a coffee shop with a friend or even by myself and one evening, and I'm gonna explore this a little bit more and figure it out. But right now is not the time for me to process that and all of a sudden get stressed and take it out on my kids and say, okay, we need to do like 3 hours extra of school today. And because you're trying to catch up on all in one day, right? And so I think it's when you're really processing and working through that stuff and really praying for just a heart of love and calmness and a carefree mindset that comes out in a way that your kids just feel loved and cared for and that you really enjoy them. And so sometimes they can read our stress the wrong way, that they're an irritation to us. And maybe we are feeling irritated with them, right? So then we need to just repent, say, Lord, please help me to be more patient and loving and gentle. So I think just a lot, there's a lot of just prayer involved and a lot of preparation of the heart and the mind and checking yourself. And I'll answer that with some other questions, or I'll deal with that aspect with some of the other questions that you have. But yeah, I think that would be my response to that question.
Okay. Oh, I love that. So good. So good. So again, I think, you're answering some of these questions with the questions, which is
Mhm.
great. What I really want to focus a little bit more on is discipleship.
Mhm.
How do you see the connection between homeschool and discipleship? Like, what does that look like?
Well, I think it's everything for the Christian. That should really be the foundation. I mean, the Lord is the foundation of our homes, and within our homes, we're educating our children. And so that Christian worldview, that God centered worldview, is just going to always be pointing back to discipleship. And so every aspect of your day, there are going to be opportunities. It doesn't need to be separated out, and it really shouldn't, because we wake up every day and we deal immediately with our own emotions, our children's emotions, and that's a lot to navigate and to handle each day, because we have a lot on our minds. We have a lot of feelings in our hearts, a lot of struggles that we're working through, maybe in our marriages or with friendships or with extended family members, or maybe even dealing with chronic illness in ourselves. So many different things that we're navigating. Then we're taking on these little lives and we're trying to guide and direct them, and they have a lot of emotions that we have to deal with each day. And so throughout that, even just getting to the academics, it's like you're going through like an obstacle course basically just to sit down at the table and work on some math. And so to separate that out is kind of like suicide in a sense of, like, if you're just trying to quickly, let's get past all this stuff and not deal with anything because we've got to get to math, then once you get to math, there's going to be a massive explosion because you haven't dealt with the hearts of your children and what they're going through and feeling and struggling with, or even just your own heart. So it really starts with getting up, getting your heart ready, being in the word. And obviously, that's going to be more challenging when you have a newborn baby or just sickness in your home and your kids are up super early. So you just navigate that the best that you can, make a plan for it. Maybe have to listen to audio Bible on some days as you're getting ready and for your day, but making a plan just to get your heart and your mind ready before the Lord, and praying for the day, and preparing, mentally preparing for what is going to go down. And I think that I really recognized one day that my heart and my mind were not in the right place when I was getting out of bed and heading towards the battle that was about to ensue, because I went through this little season, and this is when I had the 5 kids and my youngest was a handful, and I just had this dread in my heart. And so I would just kind of come to the table with, like, oh, here we go again type mentality of, I know exactly what's going to happen, and just kind of a doom and gloom mindset. And that just set me up with for frustration. I was just already kind of frustrated, like, oh, this child's gonna whine, this child's gonna complain, this one's gonna throw a tantrum, this one's gonna be super slow, whatever it was. And so when I shifted that mindset and said, Lord, I know you're with me. I'm going to expect total chaos, but you're with me in it. And you've given me everything that I need to live a life of godliness. I know the way that I need to handle this. I need to handle it with confidence in you, with self control, with gentleness, with patience. And you're going to get me through it because you've gotten me through every other day of my life where I felt like I couldn't get through it. And so that mindset of just kind of expecting crazy and looking for those moments and looking at them as teaching opportunities where I could invest and disciple my kids, then it just really, really helped. And then it was like, okay, if things went well, it was just an added bonus. And if things didn't, then I would just take one thing at a time, deal with one child at a time, separate my kids up, put them in different rooms if they were fighting, whatever it was, chip away at it and trust the Lord with my day. God is sovereign. He knows what we're going to go through each day. And He's given us what we need to be patient and to make it through those things, and to really look at those different circumstances as opportunities to be an example to your kids of godliness and how you respond, and teaching them by your example, and then disciple them and show them how, what does God say about this? What does he say about outbursts of anger and about impatience and all the things that we experience, and even just the feeling of not wanting to do school, of just a laziness in our hearts, that we need to learn how to be hard workers and diligent and faithful. And so the opportunities are just in the millions, in a sense, that we can just be discipling our children, and that leads into the academics. So you're even in the midst of doing math, and, it's like you've got that child that just hates math, and they're all of a sudden their tummy hurts really bad the second that we start doing addition or subtraction or multiplication, and now they're falling off of their chair, they're rolling on the ground, and it's just learning how to just guide and direct and implement consequences when needed, but really hold the line of like, okay, not only are we going to be diligent in doing this work because this is what God has for you in this season of your life, but you need to learn obedience to mom. And so when you're not responding and you're getting a bad attitude, or you're even saying no when I'm telling you to do your schoolwork, then there are going to be consequences for that, because I want you to live in obedience to God, and you're directly disobeying the Lord as you're disobeying mom. And so using those as opportunities, and also as in moments of encouragement, of saying, hey, honey, I remember struggling with math when I was your age, or I remember not wanting to do it. I know it's really hard for you to do, but mom's with you right here. I'm going to help you with this. We're going to work through this together. You don't need to worry about it, because I'm not leaving you on your own. We're going to do this together. Let's ask the Lord to help us. Let's ask the Lord to help us to have good attitudes about everything. Mom struggles with having a good attitude about all the laundry that I have to do, or all the dishes that I have to do. And so I need the Lord's help. And so many opportunities for that. And so you're able to kind of link those two things together, the discipleship and the academics, in a beautiful way. But obviously, and we're need to just be reminded, well, I guess we don't need the reminder that we have this desperate need for the Lord's help, because we see that right in front of us. And so clinging to him and saying, Lord, I desperately need you to help me to walk in the spirit this whole day, because I start out strong, and then the attitudes of the kids just wear on me, and then all of a sudden I'm flat on my face with raising my voice or lecturing and getting into this mode. So walking in humility, apologizing, repenting before the Lord, apologizing to your children, and just telling them, hey, we're in this together. We want to honor the Lord in our home. And so let's keep coming to him and asking him for help. But there's also going to be consequences if you decide to push back against what mom is trying to do here and glorifying the Lord in our home.
Gosh, I love that because I love how you gave so many practical real life scenarios that
There's so many.
every mom goes through regardless
Mhm.
of the age of your kids. And I remember as a young mom, I would literally cringe when when I would hear something along the lines of, "It's okay, it's just a season. They're gonna grow. It's just enjoy it. It's just a season." And when
Mhm.
you're in the midst of it, well, this is a
Yeah,
really
get me
hard
out.
season,
Yeah.
so please. But
Totally.
it is so true. It
Mhm.
really is. It is so true. It is just a
Yeah,
season.
and I think it's in the midst of that season, just planting the seeds and laying the groundwork and doing the hard work. So that can be hard, but you do have to do that, because sometimes if we look at it as everything as a season, then we're actually not dealing with the problems at hand, that our children are forming these habits. And so it becomes, that season becomes long and long and long, and then we realize, wait, we're not out of it, because the child still has these issues in their heart. And so putting the hard work into it, there's a proverb that says, correct your son and he will give you rest. He will bring delight to your soul. And that's so true. But sometimes we're looking for that rest sooner rather than later. We're not continuing the correction and, waiting for that rest to happen in due time, but recognizing that there's a lot of sowing to do. And we just need to not grow weary in doing good. And that's why having community and being connected to the body and being involved in a healthy church is so important, because we gain strength from that, as well as our own walk with the Lord. But it's just parenting is not for the faint of heart, and so we have to continue to sow those seeds, and, there are some children where there are certain habits or propensities that they have that are so deep-rooted at such a young age that it takes months and months and sometimes years to really weed it out to where you see change, and so I wanna say that as an encouragement, not as a discouragement of, like, it takes a long time, but kind of like, if you feel like, "Well, this is not working," don't believe that because that constant, that consistent, loving, gentle discipline and humility is going to bear fruit. It just takes a while with some children, and you really need to just hold that line because oftentimes we can end up giving up, and then our kids end up being the ones that rule the show, and they are kind of leading the way because they just kept on at it. And I had a couple of kids like that. One in particular, she wanted to be the queen of the castle. She wanted to just rule everything and everybody to bow to her and submit and give her what she wanted. And, I just had to keep holding that line of like, "No, mom is the one," and, dad obviously too, and especially when he's home being the head of the home. Um we're saying what goes out of love for you and the Lord, and this is God's design and plan. So, mommy knows better, and here's how it's going to be. And so it was just day after day after day to where I was asking lots of people for prayer and, like, please pray for me. This child is just giving me a run for my money. It was emotionally exhausting. And, praise the Lord, over time, she started to break and submit, and I just look back and we joke about it, and she laughs about it. It's like, "Oh, mom, that I was crazy," and she's given me freedom just to share about just what I went through with her because I know it can be helpful to others to know, like, "Hey, all of our children are so different, and some are just gonna need more, time, even maybe more consequences because they are choosing to go the way of foolishness for longer." And, so just holding that line and remembering that, like I said earlier, with homeschooling, you are not gonna be able to be faithful to get to the bookwork and get to the things that you need to get to if you don't deal with the discipline issues. So sometimes you wanna push them aside because you feel so stressed with what you have to get done academically, but you're really shooting yourself in the foot if you don't prioritize that because then you're just gonna have a very chaotic homeschool experience every day because you're allowing your children to fight back and to argue about whether they're going to do school each day. And so laying that groundwork and that foundation is going to give you more freedom. And I think my kids really did get to a place where it just became so normal. They didn't remember the consequences and the discipline, but it just became so normal that we just do school every day and there was no arguments about it. It didn't mean that there were no bad attitudes that needed to be corrected and that, but overall, it wasn't just this massive battle every single day. But that meant that I had to just be self-controlled and not let the pressure affect me when we had to take sometimes a few hours of dealing with different things over and over and stopping and talking and discussing or disciplining. And then we got to a better place of where everybody was just recognizing even not only, for some of them, it was about them getting born again and having a desire to be obedient to the Lord. For others, it was just more of like, okay, here are the consequences. I don't want that to happen. And then ultimately seeing, oh, wow, it's very peaceful in our home when we make wise choices. And there's a lot of joy that comes from that and a lot of sweetness in the home. So it was a
So
blessing.
true. Oh, I love all of that. I That was amazing. And
Mm.
now you're a grandmother.
Yes. Oh my
So, yeah, you
goodness.
really are on the other side of this. So, what do you think was the most important thing, like this long-term impact of, really how you mentioned like all these seeds that you sowed, like you broke up the soil, you laid the seeds. I mean, God, gave the increase, but you didn't give up. You were faithful in this calling and now you are on the other side. So what kind of fruit are you seeing from that, even with just your family having grown children? And how do you think homeschooling played a part in that?
Yeah, God is so gracious to just bring us through with our weaknesses and our failures, and my kids are gracious too, just to overlook just the times that I blew it, and just building closeness as a family. And I want to say that so many of these things that I'm going to share can fully happen when your children are in school too. But I was thankful for the extra time to invest, and just the extra time and the gift of time that I was given through homeschooling. So if you were to ask me, what do you think is best case scenario? Well, more time is best case scenario, as much time as you can get to sow and invest and build relationships, because you're growing and you're changing. So yes, you're building that foundation, you're laying out kind of a plan or a vision for your home and how you want to glorify the Lord in your home. And this is all based on his word and his instructions, and the wisdom of God's word that you are, sharing with your children and discipling them with. So you have this framework that you're dealing with, and so you basically are building from that point. And I think that those relationships are being built from that. So you're taking God's word and saying, okay, how are we going to apply this to the things that come about? So everybody's changing and growing. So you kind of figure some things out at age 2, and a few things out at age 3, and then you see more growth, and then all of a sudden there's 7, and then there's this kind of attitude cropping up again that hasn't been there for a few years. And so it's just all a process of just reliance on the Lord. But you're working through it, and you're seeing a lot of it, and you're seeing what's happening in your child's heart if they're leaning towards like some major selfishness, or there's anger issues that are cropping up, and you can hone in on those things and be patient and gentle with them through it. And I think that patience is, like we talked about earlier, when it comes to love is patient. And so for your kids to feel loved in their home, you need to be a patient mother. And that's the way that we become patient, is by having experiences that test us in patience, right? We say, Lord, please make me more patient. Well, he's going to give you, if you're going to grow in that, he's going to have to give you opportunities to learn how to be patient with your children. And there are so many opportunities, especially with homeschooling, because you are with them 24/7, or close to it at least. And so you don't get the same breaks that maybe others get, although I would say it's important to try to find some breaks and refreshment. That's a little side note, because you shouldn't feel like you just have to, double down and never get a breather. I think a breather is super
Yeah.
healthy and can
Yes.
just make you a better mop. So that's just something to think about as well. But I think, just that patience that you're striving for, you're repenting when you're not patient, but you're really praying for it. You're memorizing scriptures on patience. And so through that, you're building these relationships and working through those things that you are going through in life. And you're also teaching your children how to love each other. And there are many times I would love to have shipped my kids off to school just so that they could be separated from one another, because that was such a massive undertaking, is teaching these children to love each other. And so sometimes it just felt like, what are we even doing? It'd probably just be better just to separate them. But that forced closeness and proximity was such a blessing, because it helped me to see, okay, where do each of these children need to work on? Like, what are the aspects of how they interact with each other, that I need to disciple them and show them, like, hey, that was the wrong way to respond to your sister. So let's try that the right way. Or teaching them not to provoke each other. So not only dealing with the one that lashes out, but dealing with the one that was pushing the buttons over and over, and kind of wanted to see that reaction, and really just teaching them how to communicate with one another. And I'm of the mindset of when they're really young, that you should be very involved in this process. I know a lot of people will say, just let them go at it and hash it out, they'll figure it out. I don't believe in that. I think that we as parents are meant, or biblically exhorted, to train our children up in the ways of the Lord. And the way that we do that relationally is to show them, especially because they're so young, they don't understand.
Yeah.
They understand the basics of scripture as you're teaching them, but they don't understand
Right.
the depths of their own heart in the same way that we have learned and been experienced in our own growth with the Lord, and seen our own the own wickedness of our own hearts, and we can sympathize with them in it, but we can show them like, hey, that was selfishness in your heart. What does God say about that? And just teaching them to talk to each other, having them say, hey, can you please not do that to me anymore? That really bothers me. And that may not bother the other child if someone does it to them, but it bothers that first child. And so teaching them to really do unto others as they would have done unto them, in the sense of they want to be listened to, they want to be heard, they want someone to care about how something makes them feel. So working through all of that as a homeschool family, and having so much time to do it was just such a gift, and it was exhausting, but then you start seeing little glimmers of fruit, and man, that really puts wind in your sails when you see that. And so that's why you need the voice of older mothers when you're not seeing those glimmers, to say, hey, keep at it, you can do this, it's so worth it. And so sowing and sowing and sowing and humbling yourself, and then working through things as a family. And so I feel like my kids have became very close because of it. And it didn't mean that there weren't issues between them. Man, some of them were just so polar opposite from each other that drove each other crazy, and continued for a long time to have to work through things. It wasn't all bliss and tea parties and like everybody's just sweet and kind all the time. Man, it was just a lot of work, but we have so many fun memories. And so not only that aspect, but just the fun, just the carefree times of just turning on the music and dancing, or popping on like some videos, like even on YouTube or something that were funny that we could laugh at together, or even just going down a rabbit trail when we're learning about something in science and I'm like, oh yeah, let's check this out. It's not even what we're covering, but one of the kids asked a question and it led us down a certain trail, and then I was excited, they were excited, and those just built all those memories, and it's just, like, locked in their little minds, and or their big minds now as they're older, but just, I feel that they really love being together. And so, like, I feel that when we get together as a family, I mean, that's like my happy time, as every mom says, when everyone's all together again, because it's so sad when they start dropping off and you're like down to two and then one. But when we're all together and we have family time and everyone comes over, there's this like really sweet level of joy, like they're in their happy place because it feels safe. And there's so much that we've built over the years, and so that is just such a blessing, and I attribute a lot of that to homeschooling. And like I said, it's just the extra time, and I know other families have that sweetness as well, but for us, it was just we just there was a lot of groundwork. And so we still talk about as a family how, like, we'll just sit around and have like a devotional time that my husband will lead, or we'll just be sharing different things, and we'll just talk about how it's so important as the grandkids are being added and my kids are getting married, and I have two married and then one to be married this year, that we have to keep our lines of communication open. We need to be open and honest, and if anybody has hurt feelings or they feel wronged in any way, that we should go to each other and keep working through anything that crops up at any time, to keep those accounts short so that we can have sweetness in our family, especially as there are sweet individuals that are marrying into our family. We want them to feel welcomed and loved and like they're 100% family. And so if there's anything that needs to be discussed or things that are hard for them, then we do that. And I've seen my kids do that as adults. Like they'll go to each other and say, hey, this was kind of hard when you said this the other day, and this humility there. But that came from a lot of just time spent doing that and trying to model it in a fallible way. But the Lord has been gracious, and I think it's just really about focus, about making sure that you have the time to invest. And I think sometimes schedules get so busy, and we've got to really keep a handle on that and make sure let's not overload, because we need the time to be able to just sit with each other, enjoy each other, and also deal with issues because that's just part of healthy relationships. If you're not dealing with issues and you sweep them under the rug, then ultimately you're going to lose closeness, and there's going to be walls that are just built between you. And so you've gotta make sure that you have that time just to be able to have the freedom to disciple, to discipline, to have sweet times that are not rushed and hurried, and you feel really listened to.
all of this has been amazing. Again, I just love the practical, but I love just the importance that you mentioned about modeling the behavior. I mean, there's just so much. I know families are going to be so blessed by listening to everything you've shared so far. So,
Praise the
as we
Lord.
are, wrapping it up, I do just want to mention just the chia convention because that's going to be coming up in the summer, and
Mhm.
I know it was something that you attended. So, just share, like, why was that encouraging for you as a young homeschool mom starting out? What did you get from the attending the Chia Homeschool Convention?
Well, it was just a really sweet time. I think the first time I went with my husband, and we weren't fully homeschooling. It was probably oldest was like 3 years old, so we were just kind of like getting our feet wet. And, we were kinda like, "Whoa, this is crazy," like, there's so much to take in, but we just were like, "Okay," like, that's normal to feel like, "Where do we even start?" And so it was such a blessing to have just that guidance, and then we realized that it kinda worked better as time went on for me just to go myself and go with a group of friends. So I had a lot of friends that were starting to homeschool, and we're like, "Let's just make, a weekend of it," and we would go stay in a hotel next to the convention center, and it was just one of my favorite times of the year because I was with the like-minded moms, and we were just it was hilarious because we're just blabbing curriculum all day long and just getting so excited and pumped and stirring each other up and sharing struggles we were having with certain kids in certain areas with writing or math, whatever, and helping each other along the way. And then talking to moms at the convention that were older and further along in their journey. And then, of course, there's such great speakers that were just sharing so much wisdom from experience. And it was just a really sweet time of focus. And I felt like it was such a kickstart to my school year. I mean, it just put wind in my sails. I think just it did help. If anyone can do the same thing, like if you can even just stay in a hotel or just disconnect a little bit from your home. It doesn't have to be this way, but that's kind of an added bonus to do that because you just get into that good mindset and like not worrying about things around the house or the kids, but you're in like full blown homeschool mindset. And it just I feel like it frees you a little bit to think straight. And even if you can't do that, just going there for that portion of time for a day is still a good disconnect from home, and you're gonna meet so many other moms that are in this on the same journey. You could even make friends there that you'll keep for a lifetime because you have so much in common, and, it's just such a blessing, and I think that it is easy to feel like, "Well, I don't need that, I have the internet now," but I do think that you're missing out on that connection that is something that we really cherished back in the day, and I think if you can get some friends on board, it makes it even more fun because it's just a girls' day, and, you're talking about all the things that you're gonna be doing in the school year, and it's just gonna be a great time.
Yeah, you brought up so many wonderful points, especially now the past couple years. I'm attending convention in a completely different way. Obviously, I'm not
Mhm.
not homeschooling anymore. I'm not an
Yes.
attendee. I'm helping out, and I've just watched so many young moms just connect with one another, just
Mhm.
never met before, never seen each other, and just happen
Yes.
to be at the same table and overhear something. And
Mhm.
then they start talking. And before I know it, they're, sharing contact information. And it sometimes makes me feel so old because they're sharing contact information with just putting their phones next to each other. I'm like, how is that even working? But, anyways, in the old days, we get some paper and a pen, give me your number.
Yes.
But it's
Yeah,
just,
totally.
but I've just absolutely loved watching just the moms helping one another, encouraging one another. And
Mhm,
yeah, you're right.
mhm,
You don't get that on the internet. Like, and as much as I want
mhm.
everybody to listen to these podcasts to get encouraged, that doesn't replace in-person events and community and the fellowship and being able to have these conversations. So
Yes,
thank
so
you for
true.
sharing that so much. And
Mhm,
just thank you for
mhm.
all that you've shared because it really has been such an encouragement. So I know you're still helping moms, you're still helping moms and wives. How are you doing that? What ministry are you involved in now?
Yeah, so I have such a passion to encourage moms in their journey with their kids because I know how quickly it goes. And I actually, many years ago, started a little group on Facebook called Joyful Mothers. And it was birthed out of me just waking up one day and going, okay. That's it. I'm gonna make a little Facebook group for us just to encourage one another, and honestly, it was really just gonna be quotes from parenting books, just to keep that focus because I would find myself just losing joy and being overwhelmed by my circumstances and just the heavy load of my responsibilities as a homeschool mom, and even just for moms in general, it just the ministry is there, like, for older women to at least, now that I'm older, especially to be able to just encourage, and it's biblical to teach the younger women to love their husbands and to love their children. But anyway, started this group and posted quotes for a long time, and then it just really grew. A lot of women were like, "Hey, I want to join that. I need the encouragement. I need it on a daily basis." And then I started posting a few more of my thoughts, especially as I was getting older and my kids were getting older, and the Lord was just teaching me different things. And I made it public, and then it moved it to Instagram, and it really just grew so much because there's such a desire for that encouragement, and not just like the fluffy, like, you're a great mom and you're amazing, but sometimes, to be honest, we're not amazing. We're not we're not being a great mom because we're in the flesh and we're frustrated and we're losing it. And so sometimes we just need that gentle kick in the pants, as I like to say, of just like, hey, like, we got to pull it together in God's strength and God's grace. Like, he's going to give us what we need, but we need to be convicted. We need to repent. We need to strive for holiness and leading the way for our children. And it's easy to just kind of sink into survival mode where you're barely making it through each day. You have a bad attitude because you're overwhelmed. And so my goal is just to be able to encourage moms to just someone cheering them on, but also giving them some words that are just biblical by God's grace, and just keeping us on a path that we won't regret, because the time goes so quickly, and we want to do everything we can to minimize the regret in our lives of just how we've lived for the Lord. And that goes for in general for all of us as Christians. Like, we want to wake up each day with a focus on eternity. But as moms, and especially homeschool moms, you can lose that focus pretty quick because you're getting overwhelmed. And so that is really my hat, is just to put an arm around the shoulder and say, you can do this. Here are some truths that might be helpful. And so I have an Instagram account. It's joyful_mothers, and then a Facebook group that is just called Joyful Mothers. And so you should be able to find me pretty easy in those spots if anybody wants to follow along and get some encouragement. And I'm super excited to say that I just finished creating a website with some major help because I'm not very tech savvy. That basically feeds out of Instagram, which Instagram and Facebook have the exact same postings on them. So it feeds out of it, but you do not have to have social media to access all of the exact same content. This has been something I tried to do a while back and it had too many glitches, but I have such a strong desire to do this because I don't want to encourage anybody on social media that doesn't feel like they need to be on social media, because it can just be a can of worms and too overwhelming to be in that world. And you really do have to limit yourself on there and have it under control. And some women are just opting to not even have it. And I think that's really wise if you're in a season where it's just too distracting to you. So I have this new website. It is joyfulmothers.net, and it's up and ready to go, and it has that encouragement. And I plan, Lord willing, to maybe add some audio to where I'll just share some short little encouragements on there as well. um, and then I have also an events page where I share different places that I'm speaking, or a contact form if you'd like to have me come speak at your church or your homeschool group. And so, yeah, I'm excited about that ministry, as now I have graduated all my kids, and it's a good distraction from the sadness of not homeschooling anymore. And my kids being young, I really miss it. It's hard to move on from that season. But like you said earlier, I have grandkids and they are a great distraction too. And I'm excited that they are going to be homeschooled, and kind of in the beginning stages, because my oldest grandson is turning 5 this year, and his wonderful mommy is gonna be an amazing homeschool mom, so she's gearing up, and all 4 of my other kids would really love to homeschool their kids too, so that is very exciting for me as a
Yes.
homeschool mom.
Oh, what a testimony. I love
Yeah.
it. Oh, and I think that is just a perfect place to wrap it up. So,
Mhm.
thank you so much. And we'll make sure we put all of your links in the show notes so that people, if they want to continue, well, I know they're going to want to continue following you and get more
Aw.
encouragement. So, they'll be able to do that. So, thank you so much. This was such a blessing. Rachel, thank you so much for this conversation. Your heart for mothers and discipleship really comes through. If you were encouraged and would like to connect with Rachel, you can find her on Instagram and Facebook at Joyful Mothers. I've been following her a while now, and her posts are always so encouraging. I know you're going to be blessed. But before we go, I want to remind you about some great resources and upcoming opportunities. First, if you're looking for in-person practical training and community, be sure to check out our Homeschool Essentials series. This will be happening in March and April. These sessions are specifically designed to equip and encourage parents. We're also excited to announce our new YouTube series, You Can Homeschool, which just launched in January and will be running through June. It's packed with encouragement and practical tips for families beginning their homeschool journey. So subscribe and join us there. And don't forget to mark your calendars. Registration for our 2026 annual Parenting and Homeschool Convention opens at a discounted rate on February 9th for CHIA members only, and on February 18th for everyone else. This year's theme is Preserving Liberty, and we'll be gathering July 10th and 11th at Calvary Chapel Downey. This is where vision gets restored, friendships are deepened, and hearts are renewed. You don't want to miss it. And if you're not a CHIA member yet, please head over to our website, chiaofca.org, and find out about all the fantastic benefits you receive as a CHIA member. Thank you so much for listening to CHIA's California Homeschool Podcast. We pray this conversation has encouraged your heart today. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and make sure you share with a friend. Until next time, keep leading your family with vision, faith, and love. God bless you.
Brought to you by thepodcastupload.com, empowering faith-driven voices.